Imagine a tiger so dangerous that entire villages lock their doors in broad daylight. A tiger credited with 436 human deaths. That number sounds like the beginning of a monster story. But the Champawat Tigress was not born hunting people. One damaged mouth, one failed attempt to kill her, and years of fear turned an ordinary predator into one of history's deadliest animals. The story begins near the turn of the 20th century, in the Himalayan foothills between Nepal and the Kumaon region of northern India. This was a landscape of steep ridges, narrow valleys, dense forest, and small villages separated by difficult ground. There were no phones to spread warnings and no safe boundary between daily life and tiger country. For the people who lived there, entering the forest was not recreation. It was how they collected firewood, cut grass for livestock, gathered food, and moved between villages. Staying indoors might keep someone safe for one day. After that, the cooking fire still needed wood, and the animals still needed fodder. The forest was dangerous but unavoidable. Normally, wild tigers do not choose humans as their preferred prey. A healthy tiger is built to ambush deer, wild boar, and other powerful animals. It closes the final distance in a short rush, controls the prey with its forelegs, and finishes with a bite to the throat or neck. Those long canine teeth are essential tools. Before she became a man-eater, the tigress survived a gunshot. According to Jim Corbett, it broke both canine teeth on the right side of her mouth. The upper tooth was snapped in half. The lower tooth was broken almost to the bone. She could still walk, hide, and attack, but bringing down normal prey had become far more difficult. A wounded tiger still has to eat. Humans were slower, softer, and often alone. Once the tigress made her first successful human kill, she learned something terrible. People were now easier to catch than the animals she had evolved to hunt. The attacks multiplied. After roughly 200 deaths in Nepal, armed parties were sent after her. They failed to kill her, but drove her out of the area. One country's problem moved across the border. The tigress entered Kumaon already experienced at hunting people. There, she became even more difficult to stop. She learned the paths people used, the places where they gathered wood, and the cover that allowed her to approach unseen. She attacked during daylight when people had to work. She could appear, kill, and disappear into terrain, where a few hundred meters on a map might mean a deep gorge, a wall of rock, or an hour of climbing. Fear changed the region before the tigress ever entered a village. People stopped traveling alone. Work in the forest slowed or stopped. Roads and footpaths became empty. In one village visited by Corbett, about 50 people had remained behind locked doors for 5 days. Their food was running out. They faced a choice between the tiger outside and hunger inside. The authorities offered rewards. Hunters and armed patrols searched the hills. Yet the death toll kept rising. The tigress did not need to defeat them. She only needed to hide, wait for them to leave, and attack later. In a vast forest, patience favored the animal that lived there. Jim Corbett was eventually asked to help. He had grown up in the region and understood tracks, alarm calls, disturbed vegetation, and the movement of wind through a valley. He agreed on 2 conditions: cancel the reward and withdraw the other hunters. He did not want several armed men stalking the same tiger and accidentally shooting one another. The tiger was already doing enough damage without help from crossfire. In 1907, a runner arrived with news of another attack. A girl of about 16 or 17 had been collecting dry sticks with a group near a village when the tigress appeared. The others escaped. The girl did not. Corbett followed the trail into steep, broken ground. He tracked the tigress for hours, sometimes hearing her growl from cover without seeing her. He could not safely approach the place where she had stopped. Instead, he studied the surrounding hills and designed a beat for the next day. The plan was simple in theory and slightly insane in practice. Villagers would line a ridge, then fire old guns, beat drums, shout, and roll rocks downhill. The noise would push the tigress toward a narrow gorge, where Corbett would wait. At first, almost no one came. The fear of the tigress was too deep. Then men arrived in pairs, small groups, and finally in crowds. By midday, 298 villagers had assembled. Their weapons ranged from useful rifles to objects that probably belonged in a museum. Some men had no gun at all. Their job was simply to make enough noise to move an animal that had terrorized the district for years. The beat began before Corbett was fully in position. Gunfire and shouting exploded across the ridge. The tigress broke from cover, turned back, then appeared again near the gorge. Corbett fired. His first bullet struck too far back. His second hit near the shoulder. Then his rifle was empty. The wounded tigress moved onto a rock above the stream. Corbett ran to borrow the local official's gun, even though its barrels did not fit the breech properly. At close range, he aimed as the tigress faced him. The shot struck her paw instead of her mouth, but the earlier wounds had already done their work. She collapsed on the rock. The crowd rushed forward carrying guns, axes, swords, and spears. One man said the tigress had killed his wife and 2 sons. For a moment, years of fear became rage. Then the anger faded. The animal was lowered carefully, tied between 2 saplings, and carried through the villages so families could see the danger was over. Only then did Corbett examine her mouth. The broken upper and lower canines confirmed his conclusion. An old gunshot had damaged the tools she needed to kill natural prey. The bullet intended to remove a danger had instead helped create a far greater one. Corbett described the girl's death as the tigress's 436th human kill. Guinness later listed the Champawat Tigress as the tiger responsible for the most human fatalities on record. But the number alone can hide the real story. 436 was not one event. It was years of ordinary people making impossible choices, failed attempts to stop the attacks, and one predator repeating a method that kept working. None of this makes the deaths less tragic, or the final hunt less necessary. Once the tigress had learned to hunt people, the villages needed immediate protection. But calling her evil explains nothing. She was injured, adaptable, and trapped by the same need that drove villagers into the forest, the need to find food. Corbett later argued that tigers were not naturally bloodthirsty, and that India would be poorer without them. The animal he killed became proof of his point. The Champawat Tigress was not a supernatural monster. She was the result of a human wound, an animal's ability to learn, and a landscape where people and predators had no safe distance between them. The first gunshot did not kill her. It broke her teeth. Years later, the final shots ended the story. Between them, 436 people died.